Happy Pentecost, everyone. Happy birthday of the church. Last Sunday, we celebrated Jesus' ascension. You'll remember that Jesus was with his disciples for many years teaching them, and then he was crucified on the cross because people didn't understand him. But 3 days later, God raised him from the dead, and he spent another 40 days with his disciples teaching them once again about God. But on the 40th day, he took them out of the city of Jerusalem, and he told them he was going to God, but that God promised to send someone to remind them that Jesus was with them, even if they couldn't see him physically. Now, that someone God was sending was the Holy Spirit, Jesus also called the Advocate. And so 10 days later, after the disciples had returned to Jerusalem to wait, as Jesus told them to do, the Holy Spirit descended upon them. And that's the story we're hearing today. So you'll find it in your children's Bible. The story is The Holy Spirit Comes on page 473. Thousands of people went to Jerusalem to celebrate a Jewish holiday called Pentecost. They came from many countries and spoke many different languages. Jesus' disciples were staying there. They were praying together. Suddenly, a noise filled the room. It sounded like a strong wind blowing. The Holy Spirit appeared as tongues of fire on each of them. They started talking in languages they did not know. The people in Jerusalem heard the noise and came to see what was happening. The crowd was amazed and asked, "How are you able to speak our languages?" Peter said, "The prophets told us this would happen." Then Peter told them about God's plan. God sent Jesus to save everyone from the bad things we have done. Now, when we think of fire, we think of something that can burn us, but also something that keeps us warm. Fire is a very important part of our daily lives because it heats the water that we use for our showers and to wash our dishes. It keeps our house warm when days are cold by burning oil or coal or gas. Fire is very important to our survival, but as you know, fire can also be dangerous. The more fire there is, the more we run the risk of burning ourselves or something else. The Holy Spirit fire was very different from a dangerous fire. Jesus told the disciples God would send the Holy Spirit, so even though they couldn't see God, and even though they couldn't see Jesus, they would feel God's presence and Jesus' presence through the Holy Spirit. They would know that God was with them, that Jesus was with them, that the Holy Spirit was with them, because they would feel the warmth of the Holy Spirit's love in them. So the Holy Spirit fire isn't a fire we need to worry about. The Bible story of Pentecost says something like wind was heard and something like fire rested upon the disciples, trying to help us understand this miracle that God performed, to let the disciples know that even though Jesus wasn't with them, they were not alone, and they could continue to do the things Jesus had taught them and asked them to do, which is exactly what Peter did. He wanted people to know that if they had done bad things, they could ask God for forgiveness, and God would help them do what was right. Peter wanted them to know that Jesus had given his very life so that we can ask God to forgive us, and that the Holy Spirit will fill us with inspiration to do what is right. Now, you might think about athletes. Sometimes we talk about athletes being on fire, like LeBron James keeps dropping three-pointers, and we say, he's on fire. Or, Bryce Harper keeps hitting home runs, and the commentators say, he's on fire today. Well, what that really means is They're inspired. They're filled with fire, just like the Holy Spirit fills us with fire. So we experience every day the fire of God, of Jesus Christ, and of the Holy Spirit with us. There's nothing that can separate us from God's love. Because God sent the Holy Spirit to be with us, we are inspired, filled with the Spirit that God sent to be with us. Of course, if we're not careful, fire is dangerous. If you blow on fire, it can go out, or it can be even stronger and can spread and catch other things on fire. Now that would be dangerous, but with the Holy Spirit, that's exactly the kind of fire we want to spread. So we want other people to know that the Holy Spirit is in them just like it's in us. God with us to inspire us and fill us with the warmth of God's love for one another. That's what we're celebrating today, Pentecost Sunday. That's what we celebrate every day, because as Jesus told us, God promised to send the Holy Spirit, and God kept that promise. Happy Pentecost. Happy birthday, church. God is with us always through Jesus' words and the fire of the Holy Spirit. See you next week.